world of rock and roll is no stranger to feuds, but few have been as outspoken and long-lasting as the animosity between Guns N' Roses and Kiss. The disdain from Guns N' Roses towards Kiss is deeply ingrained, particularly for lead guitarist Slash. In a 1990 interview with Musician magazine, Slash candidly expressed his hatred for Kiss, a sentiment that dated back to the early days of his musical journey. During rehearsals with former Guns N' Roses drummer Steven Adler, who was a massive Kiss fan, Slash was often subjected to hearing Kiss records, a band who Slash claims he, quote, always hated. Slash's early exposure to Kiss only solidified his negative opinion of the band. Interestingly, in 1982, a 17-year-old Slash saw a potential opportunity to join Kiss when they were looking for a replacement for Ace Frehley. Slash reached out to Paul Stanley, expressing his desire to audition for the role.
Slash called me on the phone, this really nice kid in high school named Saul Hudson called me. I felt very taken with him because he was very down to earth and very well spoken.
However, Stanley decided against it, citing Slash's young age as a primary concern.
I said, you're a little too young for this, but keep at it. So he's done okay.
This rejection, while not overly hostile, likely sowed seeds of bitterness that would later flourish into full-blown animosity. By 1987, Guns N' Roses had gained significant traction in the Los Angeles music scene. Paul Stanley, curious about the rising stars, visited the band while they were working on demos for their breakthrough album, Appetite for Destruction. Despite initial camaraderie between Slash and Stanley, their relationship quickly soured. Paul Stanley wrote, "Immediately after my interactions with the band, I started to hear lots of stories Slash was saying behind my back. He called me gay, made fun of my clothes, all sorts of things designed to give him some sort of rock credibility at my expense. This was all years before his top hat, sunglasses, and dangling cigarette became a cartoon costume that he would continue to milk with the best of us for decades." Despite their rocky relationship, Slash later reached out to Stanley yet again, requesting assistance in obtaining free guitars from Stanley's connections in the music industry. Stanley's response, as detailed in his autobiography, was a sharp rebuke. Paul responded, "You want me to help you get guitars after you went around saying all this shit about me behind my back? One thing you're gonna have to learn is not to air your dirty laundry in public. Nice knowing you. Go f*** yourself." However, this feud wasn't limited to Slash. Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose also had his share of grievances with Kiss.
I like Kiss in their early days. I think the only thing that we have in common with Kiss now is that, they like to make money and they like girls, but as far as their music go, basically their music's like second fiddle to their other desires. Our music comes first.
In his autobiography, Paul Stanley speculates that Axl's hostility towards the group began when Paul suggested a structural change to the song Night Train upon hearing Axl's first version of the demo. Paul wrote, "Axl chatted with me and played a few songs on a crappy cassette player they had lying around. When he played Night Train, I thought it was really good, but I told him that maybe the chorus could be used as a pre-chorus instead, and there could be another chorus added afterwards. That was the last time he ever spoke to me. Ever." This incident added yet another layer to the already fraught relationship between the two bands. Carlos Santana, renowned for his virtuosity on the guitar and his soulful fusion of rock and Latin music, has been openly critical of Gene Simmons and Kiss. When asked about his perception of bassist Gene Simmons, the guitar legend bluntly stated, "He's not a musician, he's an entertainer. Kiss is Las Vegas entertainment, so he wouldn't know what music is anyway. That's why he wears all that stuff." He further elaborated, "Simmons hides his talent beneath costumes and makeup. A musician doesn't need the mask or mascara. There's a difference between an entertainer and a musician." Initially, Gene Simmons seemed to take Santana's criticism in stride, responding with a measured, "not everyone likes the same meal." This analogy suggested a tolerant acceptance of differing tastes. However, as Santana's criticism continued, it evidently struck a nerve with Simmons. In response, Simmons abandoned his earlier calm and fired back, "I'm sick and tired of these bands like Carlos Santana looking at his shoes and thinking that's a rock concert. Get off the stage." This exchange highlights the stark dichotomy in their respective views on what constitutes a compelling performance. What are your thoughts on Carlos Santana criticizing Kiss? Let me know down below in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. When it comes to rock and roll rivalries, few are as complex and inconsistent as the one between Kiss and Motley Crue. Both bands are legendary in their own right, with Motley Crue often citing Kiss as a major influence on their music and stage persona. They've shared stages on major tours, including a memorable co-headlining venture in 2013. However, despite these shared experiences and mutual respect, recent controversies have driven a significant wedge between the two iconic bands. The first major crack in their relationship appeared in 2014, when Gene Simmons made highly controversial comments about addiction and depression. In an interview with Songfacts, Simmons stated, "I don't get along with anybody who's a drug addict and has a dark cloud over their head and sees themselves as a victim. My mother was in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany. I don't want to hear fuck all about the world is a harsh place. And for a putz 20-year-old kid to say, I'm depressed, I live in Seattle, fuck you, then yourself. I'm the guy who says jump when there's a guy on top of a building. Why are you announcing it? Shut the fuck up, have some dignity, and jump." These remarks struck a particularly sensitive nerve for Nikki Sixx, Motley Crue's bassist, who has been open about his own struggles with substance abuse and depression. Sixx responded vehemently on his radio show, Sixth Sense, condemning Simmons' insensitivity and lack of understanding regarding mental health.
There's almost 15 million Americans who are depressed. Gene Simmons says, I should have killed myself. Or if you out there are depressed, you should just kill yourself. 15 million people should just kill themselves. I am a recovering drug addict. If I had done what Gene Simmons said, and that is to jump, so many wonderful things would have not happened in my life.
Tensions escalated further in 2016, following the untimely death of the legendary musician Prince. During an interview with Newsweek, Simmons bluntly attributed Prince's death to drug use, saying, "His drugs killed him. What do you think? He died from a cold? How pathetic that he killed himself. Don't kid yourself. That's what he did. Slowly, I'll grant you, but that's what drugs and alcohol is. A slow death." This statement not only outraged the rock community, but also drew public criticism from Simmons' own bandmate, Paul Stanley. Stanley tweeted, "Embarrassed by cold, clueless statements regarding Prince's death. Without all the facts, better to say nothing. My apologies." Nikki Sixx also took to X to express his disapproval, stating, "Gene Simmons' recent heartless and uneducated remarks about Prince's death show why he's not my hero anymore, or anybody's. Hashtag from hero to zero." He continued his critique of Simmons on Sixth Sense, saying, "When you're in Gene's position, you should have a little bit more than a narrow-minded, bullying sense of what's happening on the earth. I think that Gene is an overrated, lucky guy that dresses like a clown. He wrote some good songs, but hasn't in a long time, and loves to brag about himself." Nikki Sixx seems to have changed his tune about Kiss in recent years, most recently addressing the feud in this 2016 interview with Loudwire.
I grew up, I loved Kiss. They influenced me as a songwriter. Kiss gave Motley Crue one of their very first tours. They've done a lot of great stuff, for me in my life. I'll be honest with you, I think we just kind of look like a bunch of old women fighting at this point. I really, I love you guys, whatever, it's all good.
In the early 1980s, America was gripped by a particular wave of hysteria known as the Satanic Panic. Amidst this climate of fear and suspicion, rock bands like Kiss found themselves at the center of controversy. During this period, Bob Dylan experienced a significant personal transformation. Having embraced Christianity, Dylan's music took a sharp turn towards religious themes. This change in direction wasn't universally welcomed by his fans, who were eager to hear his classic hits rather than his new gospel-inspired repertoire. Tensions came to a head during a performance at the University of Arizona. As Dylan delivered his set filled with songs praising Christ, the audience grew restless and began clamoring for his older, more familiar material. Frustrated by their demands, Dylan lashed out, saying, "If you want rock and roll, you can go see Kiss and rock and roll your way down to the pit." This outburst marked the beginning of Dylan's overt disdain for Kiss. He viewed their music and theatricality as emblematic of what he saw as the decline of genuine rock and roll. To Dylan, Kiss's face paint and stage antics symbolized a superficial, gimmicky approach to music that stood in stark contrast to his own deeply felt artistry. While Dylan's harsh words and dismissal of Kiss might seem overly critical, they underscored the intensity of the era's cultural conflicts. On April 18, 2003, legendary rock bands Aerosmith and Kiss announced a 32-date co-headlining tour across America. The tour, known as the World Domination Tour by Kiss and Rocksmith's Maximus Tour by Aerosmith, was poised to be a monumental event in rock history. However, behind the scenes, tension simmered, leading to a long-standing feud between the two iconic bands. The idea for the tour came from Kiss's manager, Doc McGee, who took credit for bringing the two rock giants together. However, Aerosmith had specific demands before agreeing to the tour, sparking initial friction. One significant demand was that Kiss perform with at least 3 original members, with Ace Frehley opting out to focus on his solo career after the band's farewell tour in 2001. This posed a challenge. Peter Criss, who had previously refused to participate in the Japan and Australia leg of the farewell tour due to a contract dispute, was asked to rejoin the band. Kiss frontman Paul Stanley expressed his reluctance to have Criss back, writing in his memoir, "By this point, Ace had already made it clear he was done," which left Peter as the remaining 3rd member. According to Peter Criss's memoir, the Aerosmith camp wanted the original 4 so bad, Joe Perry personally called Peter Criss at his New Jersey home, urging him to convince Frehley to return. Perry was adamant that without Frehley, Aerosmith did not want to open for what they saw as, quote, imitation Kiss. After the Kiss camp made it clear Frehley wouldn't return, Aerosmith refused to open for the tour in general, forcing Kiss to take the opening slot. As the tour progressed, personal tensions and professional rivalries began to surface. Peter Criss noted Paul Stanley's alleged jealousy of Aerosmith frontman Steven Tyler, writing, "It was so obvious on the tour that Paul was jealous of Tyler." The competition between the bands was palpable, as both were eager to prove their dominance on stage. Despite the animosity, the tour was a commercial success, grossing $64 million and significantly extending its initial number of dates. The underlying tensions between Kiss and Aerosmith boiled over publicly in the years to follow. In a 2012 interview, Steven Tyler took a sharp jab at Kiss, describing them as a comic book rock band and suggesting their music was secondary to their theatrical performances. Joe Perry supported Tyler's view, stating, "They went the theatrical way and used rock and roll kind of as their soundtrack, and for Aerosmith, the music is our show." Paul Stanley retaliated during a Rockline interview, accusing Tyler of harboring a superiority complex. He mentioned Tyler's dissatisfaction during the tour and took a dig at Aerosmith's performance, saying, "I have to say that seeing him go on after us and play to an underwhelmed audience and see people walking out didn't feel too bad to me." Paul Stanley doesn't seem to have changed his mind about Steven Tyler, as was made obvious in this clip from a 2020 interview with Richard Marx.
The other guy whose voice, no matter how old he gets, just continues to be magnificent and kick-ass is fucking Steven Tyler.
Well,
Really?
let's talk about Rod Stewart.
Okay.
Kiss are no stranger to rock feuds and have been at the center of many. From Guns N' Roses to Carlos Santana, Bob Dylan, and Aerosmith, numerous iconic figures in the music industry have publicly voiced their disdain for the legendary band. These conflicts often reflect deeper differences in musical philosophy, performance style, and personal views. These various feuds and criticisms underscore the complexity of the rock and roll landscape. While Kiss has undeniably left an indelible mark on the game, their approach to music and performance has sparked significant controversy and division amongst their peers. Ultimately, Kiss are still hailed as one of the most legendary rock bands in music history and are forever cemented in the world of rock and roll, regardless of their critics. What are your thoughts on Kiss's various feuds? Let me know down below in the comments and subscribe for more videos from Cassius Morris Official.